When it comes to the first 6 episodes of season 10 of Ready to Love, in some ways you can see a difference, but for the most part, it's more of the same, just we're finally out of the South. To summarize the first half of season 10, Tommy and the gang have finally moved out of south of the Mason-Dixon line and now in Philadelphia. And in many ways, you can see a lot of the same going on here. The only difference is when it comes to the attitudes, things are a little bit different. But in terms of the same stuff, some things is positive. Like every third or fourth episode, there's a group date situation so people can check in, see who's actually matching with who when the time comes. And we still have the usual eliminations that are deliberated. People kind of push others to get rid of one person who maybe said the wrong thing to them. It's a little bit childish, but pretty much, if you watch anything from before, Ready to Love went on a bit of the longest hiatus it ever has, it's not much different. So, to review the first half of the season, I have to admit, the gaps that Ready to Love has had since its last season, I feel like immensely helped, mainly in that it allows you to give the show grace and kind of reinitiates how grateful you can be for the show existing. Because when it comes to dating shows, most of them are either mixed or predominantly white. So with that, Ready to Love is very much an outlier for having a majority black cast, even if some people are black identifying but ethnically mixed. And with that, you get something that feels very much, I don't want to say for the culture because I feel like that's an overused term, but it is still very much about you getting to see yourself on screen, seeing people dealing with the same dating troubles that you may have. And while Ready to Love is not necessarily a place you should look for if you want hope, at the same time, you can never deny the entertainment value of it, even when it gets extremely frustrating to watch. But with that said, one of the highlights for this season is that when it comes to the editing, even though I very much long missed when they would have a casting special which kind of broke everybody down before the dating starts, at the very least, with the way things are with this season, it does feel like even when people are introduced and they come off a little bit superficial, there is some type of follow-up not too long after to show you that this person does have depth. Like Shanice is one character, for example, who almost got eliminated. When initially introduced to her, she seemed like a workaholic as she notes how she's an entrepreneur and has this business, that business, and the third. And in an episode later on, it's revealed that part of the reason why she works so hard is because she's been homeless before. She's been legitimately broke beyond just, all bills being paid and she ain't got nothing extra. And with that, you get a sense of who she is and why some of the things that she led with that made her seem kind of boring to the men or perhaps superficial, why that is not the complete picture. For even when it comes to someone named Coley, who's on the show, beautiful woman, a lot of men feel like she's superficial, but at the same time, you can kind of get the sense that she's superficial or seems superficial because you're not engaging her. You're not asking interesting or serious questions, so what can she give you when you're not seeking it? And I would even say in the reverse for the men, you also kind of get that vibe sometimes, like Cisco, for example. He seems, as one of the cast members, not characters, one of the cast members, Tay, says, he seems like the perfect guy. Muscular, working, handsome, doesn't have long hair like through the wind, but he has something up there, he's not bald. And then comes the other side to it, that after his last divorce, he's now in a state where he rents out a room because he doesn't have a close relationship with his mom. He doesn't have his own car. His job situation, he seems to have something going on, but it's not where he needs to be. And with that, you get a sense that there is a level to these people that I don't think in past seasons we really got to see. Because in past seasons, when it comes to like this stuff like we heard about with Cisco, that usually is hold off to the reunion show because they kept it close to the chest and they didn't want nobody to know. But instead, it's being learned fairly early on, and it gives you a sense that there is no perfect time to really date. And as much as dating, bettering yourself and all that is considered something that, you have to work on to be attractive, to be someone who is worthy of love and all that other stuff. At the same time, as I feel like Cisco is showing, you can be on that journey and not fully have it done or be complete, and you can still be worthy of love. You could be worthy of affection, time, investment, and I can only hope with the way that his story, journey, whatever you want to call it, is going, that whether it's Tay or somebody else, we do get to see him kind of end up in a good situation, only because one of the things that has always been a bit of a struggle for me when it comes to Ready to Love is seeing it not just as entertainment but also as hope. Because with this being a bunch of black people, I believe that median age is like 35, 36, which I'm creeping up towards more and more. After a certain point, you don't want to laugh and just see this as something dramatic and entertaining to watch. You want to have something that feels like an example that could be some kind of hope. And when it comes to Cisco and the others, I feel like there is a slight shift toward that, but there are still slight issues that complicate this being all that it could be. Which leads to the next highlight, and that's Naeem and Cisco having a conversation in episode 5 that was a real heart-to-heart. And it kind of piggybacks off the last highlight in terms of Cisco opening up about his more vulnerable struggles in terms of finances and also stability. And I don't remember which season it was, but I think it was Ready to Love Last Resort. And either in a Clubhouse interview or something else, it was noted by the tall, skinny gentleman with the bald head. There was a conversation that the men had that was a real strong heart to heart, real beautiful thing, but it was cut and not seen on television. And I think they maybe played a clip later on Ready to Love, but it's a bit fuzzy because it's been a while. But the point is, I feel like there's not enough conversations outside of deliberation between these men and women because, the idea is you're in a competition. Why would you talk to your competition when you're going after the same girl? Like, for example, Cisco and Naeem are both going after a woman named Tay. I mean, Naeem more so in episode 6 than episode 5, but point of the matter is, most of the time outside deliberation, you don't see the same sex interact too much. And I feel like it kind of does a disservice to them because they're all technically in this together, and the brotherhood and sisterhood shouldn't be more than just gossiping amongst each other about what somebody did or didn't do, which leads to only a bit of high school animosity and jealousy. Instead, we should get conversations like Naeem and Cisco had, where there's a form of support, there's a form of togetherness that reminds you that it's not just a bunch of skin folk interacting with each other, but also some sense of kinfolk who not only have the ability to hold each other accountable, but also support each other in their journey. Because clearly, as Tommy says, what you've been doing in the past hasn't been working, and I think part of it is that there hasn't been a community or village supporting you on the journey. Instead, you've been going at it at your own, and clearly that hasn't been working. Which leads to the last highlight, and that's just when it comes back to love, there's certain things that are done every season, and increasingly they're starting to get a little bit more of a template of what's working and trying to tap into that. One of those things is to have a get to know you or how much do you know someone game. And while admittedly the one at Tommy's block party was a little bit weird in terms of asking who had sex at a funeral home and stuff like that, at the same time it does kind of give you a sense of who's actually playing the game, for lack of a better term, and really learning about these guys. Angie was number 1, even though Sahara has issues with getting a homie vibe label, she was number 2. And with that in mind, it really gives you a sense of who is really serious about getting to know these guys, or at least getting a sense of who they are so they can answer these questions, even if some of the questions were, again, very outlandish. So getting to the on the fence portion, I have to say that the casting still feels a bit suspect. And part of the reason I say this is a character, a cast member named Sahara, she's somebody who's definitely got that around the Wago vibe. She's got a little bit more hood than the rest of the ladies, open about it at that, passionate, loquacious, has some weird beliefs like she's a flat earther among other things, but overall she seems like a decent young woman. But she got that homie vibe label, and I don't know why casting still puts on women who have that homie vibe. And you would think, because you can tell, they have been slowly but surely phasing out certain body types and certain personalities, and it seems to have done better for the show, but they keep with the homie vibe person, and I don't know if it's just a blind spot or they like putting somebody like Sahara into these positions, which oftentimes, again, thinking about representation when it comes to the show and it having no peers, it often makes it seem like women who have that homie vibe, who are very much themselves and may not be the most demure feminine type, they cannot find love. And if they do find somebody, in the long term, they're going to be left with somebody who is what can seem like their opposite. And it's just frustrating to watch and even offensive in some ways, but at the same time, it's one of those things where you want to see somebody like that. You want to see them potentially succeed, yet at the same time, it's like some of the people who you rarely see cast on this show anymore, where it seemed like it was always one person who was keeping them at bat, and that's because they were friends and trying to keep them on, and not because they were truly invested in. It's like, do you want to see that for them, or do you just want them to not be embarrassed and deal with this nonsense at all? It's one of those things where it's very hard to say, and it almost makes you kind of wish that casting really did a better job at not just bringing on interesting personalities and people, but also doing a bit more work in terms of potential matchmaking. Which leads to the next on the fence topic, and that's just the eliminations. And I get there has to be some kind of pressure on these people, but I still feel like the elimination and the way it's handled is still kind of bleh. And considering, again, Ready to Love doesn't have much of a precedent, it doesn't have peers, it is technically a leader in the field that it's in, it makes me wish so badly that it would modify how it does eliminations in some way. Either in the form of not having it be a group conversation, do some kind of ranked choice voting, and then once that happens, that lead to who gets eliminated. Or maybe have it where, and this is probably a weird idea, once you get to a point where you're not locked in, once you get to a point where you don't have any mutual reciprocal matches, maybe that's when you get eliminated instead. I mean, there's so many different ways they can do it besides the way they do it now, and I think it would give some sense of, yes, you still gotta find couples by the end of the show, so you have to really think about and do what you need to do, but at the very least, it will remove the game show element where you don't have to do, or rather have to try to appeal to multiple people in order to stay on, even if you have no interest in them, because with the way things are, it's more so trying to foster you being a player and knowing how to get multiple people interested in you rather than truly build one strong connection that could outlast the show, which honestly, considering 10 plus seasons and we haven't seen many people end up together long term from their season, clearly it's more than just changing the locale. There's multiple things that need to be changed, and I'm still very much of the camp of Nephew Tommy being one of them, but we've went into that in a different video already. Which leads to the last on the fence topic, and that's just, we're 6 episodes in, and I can't really say there's any endgame couples here. And what makes it even worse is that there's a build that for a few people it seemed like they could be endgame. Like Angie and Eddie seemed like a good match, but then he said something stupid. Now Angie's like, never mind, I'm done. And that happened in episode 6. Then there was Tay and Cisco, which once he found out about his financial instability situation, she seemed ready to drop him. And it just seems that even with 6 episodes in, nobody has really gone to know another person to the point where it feels like a solid connection, a solid match that could possibly take them to be one of the final 3 couples. Instead, we're still in this place where it seems like everybody's still like barely dating anybody, and unless the cameras is on, they may text every now and again, but they're not really putting in an effort to really lock something down.